Good morning. Welcome to the Council on Post-Secondary Education's first data webinar, The Rapid Rise of Dual Credit, Understanding the Positive Impact on Grades and College Persistence. It is my honor to welcome a leader who knows a thing or two about dual credit, our president at the CPE, Dr. Aaron Thompson.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everybody. It's really a privilege being here. It's a privilege being with this distinguished panel today also. I've been around dual credit for a long time. I actually helped started the program on a campus back in the 90s, actually. It's a little bit different now than it was then, but back then it was really groundbreaking. Not a lot of people were doing it. Now, a lot of folk are. And we're going to talk about how well we're doing it, but we also know we have to get better. And this conversation today points to some real actions that we can take later on, but it also gives us some good stuff to sink our teeth into to really know that doing dual credit the right way leads us where we want to go. So I want to thank you for joining us. I also want to commend our CPE researchers and our distinguished panelists for their incredible work on these issues, along with their commitment to our state's education system. I especially want to thank all of the educators who are listening in and who serve as the boots on the ground in this effort. We can pass all the great policy in the world in Frankfurt, and we sometimes pass a lot of policies, but ultimately it's your efforts and sacrifices in the field that determine our successes. And as the numbers will reflect today, you are doing a tremendous job. Your work in this area of dual credit is absolutely great. So again, thank you. Kentucky has made some impressive headway on dual credit, and that's important because, as the research will show, dual credit programs provide a pathway into higher education for thousands of students in Kentucky. This study focused on outcomes of four-year public universities, and later on we'll do our community colleges. And hopefully that's the next edition of this conversation. It shows that the impact of dual credit coursework can be even more important for students from low-income backgrounds and our students of color. And as you all know, if you followed anything we've done in Kentucky, we've been focusing heavily on those that are the most disenfranchised. And what we've seen is that we've been able to close some gaps. But the other thing we've seen is that everybody is in fact getting what they need, no matter if they fall into those low income or underrepresented categories. We have made progress in terms of access and participation for our students from low income families, but our students of color continue to participate at lower rates than their peers. To me, this is unacceptable. And so we've got to figure out ways to not only recruit, but retain more students of color into these important programs. These programs also help us to address key issues in higher education like affordability, access, and equality. Last year, we embarked on a statewide listening tour, visiting dozens of campuses and communities across Kentucky, and we heard some recurring themes related to dual credit. We heard about the many students who accrued dual credit without proper advising. We learned how some students found it difficult to get into dual credit programs. We also heard how much students like participating, and there were even more interest than what we've been able to offer in programs and in courses. So with that in mind, we are excited to present our latest research on dual credit along with some recommendations to improve outcomes. And we are pleased to have a very accomplished panel to discuss these issues with us in depth, and we indeed are pleased. I'm going to hop off the screen and let David take over, and I will have to leave here in the middle of this to head to another meeting. But I will just say before I leave you, I really like our data team. I like the way we're matching our data and analytics to the kind of policy that we need to make. So David, thank you and your team, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson, for that introduction. And we'd also like to thank you for your leadership on these issues. Your commitment to research and evidence-based policy is second to none. And you empower us to boldly look at the good news and the bad news and make recommendations. So we're super fortunate to have you in this role. Thank you. One housekeeping item, if you have a question, please type it into the chat feature in your YouTube video, and we will answer the questions at the end. So please progress to the next slide. Today's research is the first of a three-part series on dual credit. As Dr. Thompson said, we're focusing on student outcomes at Kentucky public four-year universities today. Please stay tuned for later this fall. We will look at dual credit at KCTCS, our community and technical college system. And then early next year, we're going to look at all high school graduates, assessing their post-secondary outcomes based on their selection of coursework and their performance in that coursework during their high school years. And so this is a big benefit of our P20 data system with our sister agency KY Stats, that we can look at students in a longitudinal way. And so we're super excited about that research. So please stay tuned. Next slide, please. So I'd like to introduce our panel today. We have a tremendous group of experts on dual credit, starting with Dr. Amanda Ellis, who is a recent hire here at the council. She is our Associate Vice President for P20 Policy and Programs. She joins the CPE from the Kentucky Department of Education, the KDE, where she served as Chief Academic Officer and the Associate Commissioner of Teaching and Learning. She has also served as a high school principal and a middle school teacher. She will get her rewards in heaven, in the afterlife, for the middle school work. And she will lead our dual credit initiatives going forward for our quality and our access. Miss Lexi Riddle is from Murray State. She is a student and she's a dual credit participant during her high school years. She's from Clinton, Kentucky, and she's currently a junior at Murray. At time of enrollment, she had already earned 44 hours before she started at Murray, and she is a major in agribusiness. So welcome. We love to have a student voice. Mr. John Darnell is the Bellevue High School principal. He's also served as associate principal at Woodford County High School, and he helped Woodford County start their dual credit partnership with Morehead State University. So welcome, John. And last, Brittany Scholler is from Western Kentucky University, and she's the interim program manager at Western. She oversees dual credit operations. She's been working in dual credit capacity since 2010, and she's a liaison to numerous high schools across the state. So she works directly with administrators, faculty, and students at their local high schools. So thank you all for participating today. Next slide, please. You see, one of our most important takeaways here is the growth. And so this just goes directly to access, right? We found that over the past years, we're up about 75%, and you see over 40,000 students participating in 1920 versus just over 23,000 5 years earlier. This substantial increase really took place in 2016 when we fully implemented the dual credit scholarship in Kentucky, and then it continued to grow as the Kentucky Work Ready Scholarship was also expanded to include dual credit coursework. Next slide. You see these first two bullets are probably what you would expect in terms of participation in dual credit. So students are more likely to be white or Asian, they're more likely to be female, and our underrepresented minority students are less likely to participate. But it's noteworthy on the third bullet that you're seeing a higher likelihood for low-income students that came to four-year public universities than non-low income. So that's such a win that many of our students that need dual credit the most are taking advantage of it. Yet we still are not getting enough participation from our students of color, both low income and from higher income backgrounds. So I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Ellis and say, you know, at 75% growth, we're really seeing a positive story and a great deal of interest. What do you think are behind these numbers?
So thank you, David, for the opportunity, and thrilled to be here today with this awesome panel. I think the data is really interesting to see the growth over the past several years. And to your point, I think it's very exciting. Kentucky has taken great strides through the help of our General Assembly to financially support um, dual credit access to remove a barrier of financial burden. In 2016, we first of all, through the leadership of CPE and KDE, had a dual credit advisory council. Actually, Dr. Aaron Thompson helped to lead those efforts to establish policy to determine parameters around eligibility, around transferability of credit, the roles of the institutions, post-secondary institutions and the secondary institutions, how they work together. That was new territory. And so we've grown a lot in the past 4 years. The General Assembly then followed up a year or so later with the dual credit scholarship. And the dual credit scholarship, as many of you all know, provide a scholarship for two dual credit classes, up to two, for 11th and 12th grade students who are eligible to take dual credit classes. So that certainly removed a financial barrier for many of our students who wouldn't even think about pursuing dual credit due to cost burden. And so we were really appreciative of that and saw increase in that and increasing access. Then what also came along, which is really still getting traction, but what an incredible opportunity, is the Work Ready Scholarship. So the Work Ready Scholarship came into play that could be added to in addition to your dual credit scholarship to help Kentuckians, those who had not received an associate's degree, could receive an industry recognized certification or diploma in the specific areas in which that they were afforded the opportunity to get a full associate's or up to 60 credit hours actually in healthcare, advanced manufacturing, construction and trades, IT, business, and logistics. There are over 350 programs offered throughout Kentucky where high school students all the way through adults, if they have not earned an associate's degree, could earn one of those credentials or degrees in the 5 high demand areas for the state. So we have lots of opportunities, which I think has really started to open the door for conversation between secondary and post-secondary, and really providing additional access for our high school students and to make our families aware. Have we arrived? No. Do we still have a lot of work to do? Absolutely. To Dr. Thompson's point, we really need to increase access, but I think to specific student populations that we haven't really taken advantage of yet. However, as a state, we've seen significant growth in students taking advantage of post-secondary opportunities, which is why it's so exciting to see the positive outcomes so far of what we've seen with our research. So I think we've made great strides. My hope is that we can refine and be a little more strategic as we move forward and learn more about the post-secondary opportunities to increase access to many more students than we've even reached.
Those are great points, Dr. Ellis. And obviously we've seen some encouraging success over the years, but as you say, much work still to be done. Dr. Ellis also noted some thank yous that we certainly need to make. This has been a big undertaking to implement dual credit policy and scholarship all the way back to 2016. So we would like to thank our partners at KDE, Kentucky Department of Education, and all those individual school districts and high schools that work so tirelessly with us and with our partners at the campuses and universities and colleges across the state. We'd also like to thank KHEA, Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority, for not only distributing the scholarship aid, but also educating students on the importance of dual credit and getting started early. They are fantastic partners for us. So a big shout out and a thank you to them as well. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. John Darnell. Again, he's the Bellevue High School principal. We wonder what this all means in terms of, the ground level operations, what's going on in Kentucky high schools. So what are you seeing in terms of implementing these programs, especially with this kind of growth? So what's going well and are the current challenges?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for the invite. I'm happy to be here to represent the students up here at Bellevue and also as a principal of the other schools throughout the state. When we started dual credit at Bellevue, it was before my tenure, but Dr. Rob Smith, the superintendent, kind of brought it in. And he started out the program with a few students. And one thing that makes us unique is we pay all associated costs for dual credit for any child that wants to do it. So we don't ask the parents to pay anything above the dual credit scholarship. As a district, we are investing in our students to make sure that if they want access to an early college experience, that they can do it at no cost. So we cover all the tuition, the fees, and the books. And it's a large investment, but we know our kids are more than worth what we put in. What I think what's working well is that the program's growing. And so just the fact that we started with a couple kids and now we're up to around 30% of our junior senior class that's experiencing early college, I think that speaks volumes as to what kids around the state of Kentucky want. I know that we talked about Lexi having 44 hours. We have many students that graduate with around that. So, you know, to have kids be able to go into college from a poverty background, to have their first year plus finished with college, that just opens up more doors. We have a student in the next couple years who graduated with an associate's before she graduated from high school, who is anticipating earning a master's degree within her 4 years at the University of Louisville. So just that in itself, that's a door that would have been shut entirely if dual credit was not an option. I think one of the struggles we've had as a school is with kids going to different universities and studying at Gateway. We've had kids all over Northern Kentucky, and it's hard keeping track of what those individual students are doing at their classes. You know, we know dual credit should be the experience of college, the rigor of college, but we also don't want dual credit to lose the safety net of what you traditionally get in a secondary school. And so we also provide a transition ready coordinator who oversees our dual credit program. So he's responsible for making sure that the kids are attending classes, making sure that the work is being turned in. He serves as a liaison to the universities. So that way, that's one thing that our school counselor doesn't have to do here. So I think kids want this experience, and the fact that Bellevue values it so much that we cover all of those costs for the kids. I really foresee this program continuing to grow in the years to come. And I'm excited to see what kids do after 4 years of going to an undergraduate institution.
That is super exciting. Thank you for those comments. Next slide, please. So again, our focus of this study is the effect of high school dual credit on educational outcomes at Kentucky four-year public universities. So we have two data slides for you. This is the first. So in addition to that enormous growth, our research shows that dual credit students were more likely to persist in the second year. And then on the next slide, you'll see they're more likely to earn a first-year GPA of a 3.0 or higher. And so what you see in this slide is the overall persistence difference in dual credit participants versus non-participants. But maybe what's most important is the effect on very specific subgroups. And so what we found, if you see in that first bullet there, the white and Asian low-income students were more likely to persist than their counterparts by 9.3 percentage points. The second bullet there, you see the low-income minority students, underrepresented minority students, the dual credit participation rates pushed 8 percentage points higher than the non-dual credit participants. And so those are really powerful takeaways that are the idea that we're getting to the students that maybe need it the most. And so I'd like to turn this over to Miss Brittany Scholler. Again, she's at Western Kentucky University and she oversees their dual credit program. So with these powerful gains for low-income students, what are you seeing on campus when you talk to these students, and can you share any of their stories?
I can definitely say that whenever you speak with a student about why they took dual credit, cost is always number one or number two of their reasons. One student, for example, said cost was his number one reason of why he was taking dual credit classes. Students, especially this generation, have heard the horrors of student loans. They've heard how expensive college is and how many families are not prepared to pay what it costs to attend a 4-year institution or even some a 2-year institution. So by being able to complete, like Lexi did, almost 2 full semesters of school for free if she's fortunate enough to attend a school like Bellevue where they are completely covered, or at a almost 90% discount, depending on where she has chosen to go after high school. It is a huge advantage. When I explain the cost to students, some students are even taken aback by the tuition of a dual credit class. They've attended public school their whole life. They've never had the experience of what tuition will mean for their family, even like at a high school tuition rate. So now the idea of paying for a class and $174 seems like a lot. But then when I explained that class at a university could cost them upwards of $1,000 or more, their eyes get very big. They know college is expensive, but I don't think they fully grasp how expensive it is. So you definitely see a shock on their face. And so they know, I want to go to college, and this is a way that I can save my family and myself quite a bit of money in the long run. So yes, cost is always a huge benefit, and it's something that they always say that they're taking advantage of. And then with the scholarship, they're even more excited because, it's free now. So they definitely take advantage of that scholarship. There's also the Work Ready scholarship that several students, when they find out about that, they're interested. What classes should I take to, be able to use that scholarship? So I don't normally ask students their income levels or their families' situations, but when you see the shock of how much college costs, you kind of get the idea that they're not prepared for it. And so by being able to complete so many dual credit classes, I think that this is their way of saving money for college.
Yes, that completely makes sense. And that's really good to hear that maybe they're not understanding the ramifications early, but they understand it very quickly once they get on campus and start seeing those bills.
Yes.
So thank you, Brittany. And speaking of our student, Miss Lexi Riddle from Murray State, we want to hear her story. President Thompson often says, do the research, but listen to the students. And so this is our opportunity to get to hear from you. And we'd really like to, as much as you want to share about your story, starting back in high school and how it's prepared you to go to Murray State.
Well, thank you. I want to start out by saying I appreciate all of you for inviting me to be here today and speak. When I was younger, of course, every child has a dream. My dream just so happened to be to attend college. And I was looking online one day at different colleges, and when I saw the price of how much it was to actually attend a college, my heart dropped, and I thought that I had lost faith completely in, being able to go, because I knew that it was so expensive. I thought that it would be easy, but that day just kind of made me sad, and every dream I ever had of attending college just kind of disappeared in a split second. I knew my mom's income wasn't enough to cover the cost of college. Anytime I would get money, I would go to the Family Dollar and spend it on necessities that we would need, like trash bags, detergent, dish soap, any other item, because at the time we were financially unstable. But even with the thought in my mind that I wasn't going to be able to attend college, I still wanted to work hard, try to, do things that maybe could benefit me in the long run. In 8th grade, I moved to Hickman County. After attending 5 different schools, I knew that Hickman County was the place for me. I made new friends, I played sports, and I became involved in different clubs and activities. And I worked hard to keep my grades high so that I could earn keys money. But unfortunately, I knew that that would not be enough to cover the cost of college completely. Nevertheless, I continued to work hard because I had hope. 2016 was a hard year for me. That was the year that my dad passed, and everything in my life completely changed. I lost hope in myself. I lost hope in my future, and just everything hit me. But I started talking to family and friends, teachers at school, and I eventually started getting back into my studies. And a little while after that, I was told that I could take dual credit courses at completely no cost to me. I jumped at the opportunity and signed up to take 4 college courses my junior year in high school. I had to put in a lot of effort to be able to pass these classes. They were hard because I was also working 2 jobs. I played softball. I was involved in different clubs, and it was challenging, but I am happy now that I took these classes because without dual credit, I would not be attending college simply because of the price and my fear of going into debt. As a current college student at Murray State University, I can proudly say that the 44 hours I graduated high school with has given me an advantage to be where I am now. Dual credit changed my life, and I know it will continue to change the lives of students who decide to enroll in dual credit courses. And I appreciate everyone's efforts and dual credit for making dreams a reality for students like me who wish to pursue higher education who may not be able to afford it themselves. I'm not telling you my story because I want you to, feel sorry, but I'm telling you my story because I want everyone to know how much this program makes a difference in the lives of students, especially those who wouldn't be able to afford college otherwise.
Thank you, Lexi. That is super powerful. And that story will be shared with others because really to affirm, and many of our students in Kentucky have similar challenges and come from first generation backgrounds, first generation college student backgrounds. And so we thank you for sharing, and we're gonna hopefully hear more in just a minute. Next slide, please. This is our second data slide. And so we looked at the important impact of second year dual credit on second year persistence. We also saw a powerful outcome on grades. And so you see in the overall effect of dual credit of earning, the probability of earning a 3.0 GPA in the first year or higher is significantly increased by participation. But again, most important are these subgroups. And so if you look at the first bullet there, our low income white or Asian students are over 11 percentage points more likely to earn a 3.0 GPA in their first year of college compared to the non-participants. The second bullet there, our low income minority students, our students of color are 8 percentage points more likely to earn a 3.0 first year college GPA or higher. And maybe most surprisingly is the fourth bullet there you see for our C and our B students in their first year of college, the impact of dual credit was even more significant. What we say is the magnitude of the effect was larger than the A students. And so this is important because traditionally we thought of dual credit as that for only the top students that were prepared for college earlier than the rest of the students. But now you're seeing the benefits of, for students that need to be affirmed earlier in high school, that give them the confidence that they can do college level work. And so we're super excited to see these outcomes and a bit surprised in some cases. So I'd like to turn it over again to Principal Darnell and ask him about these data points. And do you think these programs such as dual credit can help us with achievement gaps in terms of low-income students, underrepresented minority students, and first-generation college students?
Yeah, thank you. I think anytime you can expose a kid to an early college experience, we're only better preparing them, not just for college, but for whatever comes next. I know when I first started in education, it was almost like we were a factory for telling kids, go to college, go to college, go to college. And for some students, college isn't an option, whether it be a financial thing or them just not wanting to give up 4 years. I think in order to get more kids involved into dual credit, I think we have to take a strong look at what are the requirements that kids have to have. If we acknowledge the fact that there is an achievement gap and that students from poverty and underrepresented minorities don't achieve at the same level, if we put a requirement that kids have to have a certain ACT score to get into a dual credit class, we're just furthering that divide that we have already. And so I think to work with post-secondary partners to give this experience to kids, I think that's the most important thing. If you look at the difference between dual credit and AP, if a kid wants to take an AP class, all they have to have is $100 in a pulse to register for that AP class. Nobody's going to tell a kid you have a 16 on your ACT and you have a 2.5, so we're not going to let you take AP. But I think for a lot of our underrepresented minorities and kids in poverty, I think that's what they encounter when it comes to dual credit is universities and even the community college has a specific requirement that if kids don't meet this, they can't take this class. And so I think in order for us to move forward with dual credit and truly give these kids that we want this experience for, I think we, as an entire state, as a post-secondary, secondary, KDE, everybody, I think we have to look at, do the benefits outweigh the number of an ACT score? And I think all of us on this panel and watching can agree that they do. I mean, kids shouldn't be labeled by a number. They should be labeled by what's their potential and drive in life.
That's super powerful. Thank you for that. So let's minimize the slides and have discussion questions for our panel. I'd like to turn back to Dr. Amanda Ellis. It's important to point out that despite all the benefits to dual credit experiences, Kentucky institutions, the colleges and universities that provide these opportunities in partnership with the high schools, they often discuss the challenges of providing dual credit in terms of cost and recruitment of qualified teachers. Could you speak to the challenges and how they can be better addressed in the future?
Yeah, so I'll piggyback a little bit off of what John says. I think there has to be a little bit of a balance too to ensure that we're really preparing our students with rigorous, grade level coursework from that preschool all the way up to ensure that they're really prepared. I think that's something, and being a K-12 person for almost 24 years, that's something we always dealt with. And to your point, the gap is there when they first start. So to widen that gap is not okay. And the accessibility to qualified teachers. So many of them use the SACS accreditation, which requires 18 hours in that content area beyond their bachelor's degree. That is a hindrance for some. If those who want to use high school teachers, many of our teachers who would be qualified to teach just with experience or whatever that may be, may not be interested in pursuing 18 additional credit hours to teach if they're towards the end of their career or whatever. So I do think that there are some barriers that we can definitely look at with the teacher force and accessibility around that. The other piece I think that we really should tap into a little bit more, and this still goes back a little bit to what John was saying, is really seeing the potential in the students. And back to Dr. Thompson's point around increasing the diversity of our students who are taking advantage of dual credit. This is available for all students, and the criteria to enter into dual credit classes for that college level experience absolutely can be a hindrance. We don't want to set any student up to fail, but we also don't want to assume that they can't do. And so that goes back to the advising, knowing our students, and really having that strong partnership with our post-secondary folks. Many people like Brittany, who works hand in hand with the high schools, that takes a lot of collaboration and intentionality, that there are students out there that I'm for sure even met benchmark that are not taking advantage of dual credit. And why not? And so I think we have a lot of things to dig into to look at how can we increase capacity. We've done a heck of a job, I think, as a state over the past 4 years, especially to see that number increase and increase access. I tell my own children personally all the time how incredibly privileged they are to be able to have access to college courses as their juniors and seniors in high school and have support for that. I'm so grateful, and I know almost every high school offers advanced opportunities, whether it's AP or IB or dual credit or a mix, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But I really want to make sure that we see the potential in our students and set up that opportunity to talk about affordability, to talk about that dream doesn't have to be squashed, that there are resources out there, there are supports out there. I think we can do better with that. It's not easy. And it's not a quick fix, but those are types of things, honestly, David, that we're going to be talking about when we revitalize the advisory or the dual credit advisory council, and in hopes to having some of these folks on that council and those who represent to really have those conversations, to look at what the policy says, look at accessibility, who's accessing, who is not, and where are barriers that we may be setting up on our own. Some may be at the secondary level of policy, local policy, some may be at the post-secondary, and some may just be communication. And so that's something we're definitely going to be talking about, because to me, this should incentivize us to really push forward, looking for opportunities for more students to take advantage, since we see that there are positive outcomes when students have access to this early post-secondary opportunity. So I'm really encouraged by it, but I'm also challenged to go back and look to see what we've done and what we can do further to really dig into the potential of our students and the access that they have and the measures that we're currently using. So some of my thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ellis. And let me just say, I'm super excited about your leadership and the role going forward, because there's much work to be done, but understanding all these moving parts and having access to the right people and the vision for the future, it's just exciting to see. So best of luck with your work going forward, Dr. Ellis. I'd like to turn it back over to Lexi, our student from Murray. So you saw the numbers on low-income families, especially low-income families of color that were less likely to participate. What do you think is preventing some students from the participation? And what do you tell students when they ask you about your experience? How do you give them the confidence that they can do it when they're nervous and scared about taking college level coursework?
Well, I think there are a variety of factors that can influence a low-income student's participation in dual credit. Typically, when somebody asks me about my experience, I tell them the full truth, that it's hard work, but I also tell them that it pays off in the long run. Factors that can influence a low-income student's participation would be like teacher understanding and helpfulness, knowledge of dual credit programs, and cost of courses. In order to see a rise in the student enrollment, especially low income and underrepresented minorities, students need to be exposed to and taught what dual credit is at least a few months prior to their decision to enroll in dual credit. And they need to be shown how important it is and to, going to college. Information like how much cheaper dual credit compared to full college enrollment is essential to show students how great dual credit really is. Murray State University, for example, charges $72 a credit hour for Racer Academy students, which is a mere 18% of what an in-state credit hour would cost as just a normal college student. Although the price is cheap, I wouldn't have been able to afford it in high school. Where I went, Hickman County High School has a program just like Bellevue, but ours is called Falcon Academy, where every student who wants to enroll in a dual credit class can take a class completely free. Once students like myself see the opportunities in front of them, they'll understand how important and essential dual credit is. If Kentucky wants to help, I feel like it would be better if Kentucky would help schools by funding to hire professors or teachers to help or teach dual credit courses and eliminate the worry that schools have when they have to ask donors or sponsors for a contribution towards their program. That way that each student can have dual credit opportunities at no cost to them, and that schools don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's really good news, Lexi. Thank you for sharing it. Did you have any individual faculty member that you remember that really encouraged you or affirmed your confidence to do college level coursework?
Really, every teacher in my high school was so helpful, and they pushed me to do my best. Our superintendent, Casey Henderson, always checked on me and made sure that my classes were going well. Our counselor, Amy Bowes, she always made sure that everything was perfect. All of the dual credit professors and teachers, they always just pushed me to do my best. And it's not just one person in particular that influenced me, but the combination of people who decided that they wanted to put in their time and effort into investing in their students.
Yeah, and what good news that high school has created a culture of college going and college success. So thank you for sharing that. And this is a good segue into advising. And so I'm going to turn it over to Principal Darnell. You may remember that Dr. Thompson mentioned in his comments that he did a listening tour. And on that listening tour, he took all of his executive leadership and we listened really closely. And the student stories were just super powerful. One of the things that we heard that President Thompson asked us to continue to focus on is advising, and whether these students were taking courses that were on a pathway towards their major and their career trajectory. And so from a state level, Principal Darnell, what do you see as the types of supports that schools need to do better advising, and how can that be addressed?
Yeah, I think part of the advising is, these kids are below the rung of a freshman, and rightfully so when it comes to colleges. And I think Ms. Scholler can agree with this we've all woken up at 6 a.m. to wait outside the registrar's office when we were in school to get into that class we had to get in for our major. And so coming in as high school kids, I think it's hard. And so, I think one thing that would help is going back to what Dr. Ellis said, is if we could get more high school faculty to where they are able to teach. And I know this is an accreditation issue, but, especially with teachers now, with masters being up in the air, not a lot of people were pushed into a content area master's to where this was able. So I know NKU has a great program. They're actually scholarshiping one of our teachers here at Bellevue to where they can teach English in a couple years. So NKU is covering the cost of those 18 graduate hours and part of the master's so that they can do that. And so I think if just when it comes to advising in general, I think just having a more readily available access to people who can teach these classes that will benefit kids. One of our partners we have up here in Northern Kentucky, it's a dual credit department of one that serves over 2,000 high school kids. And so, if you look at the School Counselors Association recommendation of only 250 kids per one school counselor, it's hard. And I know now we're getting into funding and it's this never ending circle. But I think just making sure that our kids have access to the information they need when they need it is most important, but also working with our partners to get more high school teachers to where they are able to teach these classes in the building. I think that's whenever we can truly take advising to the next level, and we can get kids in the pathways that they need to be in for what's left in their future.
Thank you for that. That's well put. So I'd like to talk about delivery, and I'm going to ask Miss Brittany Scholler from Western Kentucky University to discuss. So most folks on this webinar know that the delivery of dual credit can take place either on the campus, where a student from high school has to travel to the campus, or it can take place online, or it can be embedded in the high school, taught by a high school instructor. Brittany, what do you see as the benefits and the challenges to each of these delivery models?
So here at Western, we do offer all three options. We have students who travel to our Glasgow campus as well as our Bowling Green main campus. We have a fairly large online program, and we have classes in about 30 high schools taught by high school teachers. So all of them are great because it's just more access to more university classes for more students. And they all definitely have their benefits. I think that, so online definitely was our largest growing program. And it's just because we can serve students from several different high schools with classes that, as we've mentioned, we don't have teachers in high schools who are qualified to teach. But we have WKU faculty, part-time faculty who are qualified to teach and who are willing to teach it. So when they take an online class, it's a kind of a whole new ballgame for them. Most of them have never done an online class at all, much less a university level online class. So when a student contacts me about this, I rarely say, well, what's your GPA? I say, how driven are you? How good are you at time management? And do you consider yourself to be responsible? Because these classes require a student who remembers to log into Blackboard, remembers to do assignments because there's not a teacher in the classroom who's going to remind you that next Wednesday you have an assignment. The online instructor might put an announcement up and say, don't forget your paper's due. But if you didn't log into Blackboard to see that announcement, then you missed that reminder. So Blackboard, online classes, I think, are a really good tool. Whether you plan to ever take another online class or not, I think that that is a really kind of good reality check for high school students. It teaches them, I need to talk to this instructor. When they email me and ask, I don't know how to order my book, I say, did you ask your instructor? And it's not because I'm pushing them off. It's because I don't know how to order your book either, but your instructor, they do know how to order that book. Or I can't figure out how to get this assignment uploaded. Again, I don't know how to either, but your instructor, they designed that Blackboard layout. And so that's who you're going to talk to when you get to college. You won't run to your advisor every time you have a question, and your mom won't know Blackboard. Your roommate may be able to help you, but your instructor is your greatest resource in college. And I learned that right off the bat. You need to talk to your instructor, let them see your face, and then they will remember you and know that this is a present student who is serious about my class. And so I feel like with these online classes, it really teaches them that. And then, so we have a student here in our office who is a freshman this year, and she's a student worker, and she took dual credit when she was in high school. And I interviewed her, of course, to prepare for this webinar. And I asked her, tell me about your experience. I know you took online classes. And she was like, I never planned to take another online class, but this semester, most of her classes are now online again. I think she has a couple of classes with a hybrid schedule where she goes a couple of days a week, but all her other classes have moved completely online. So her dual credit online classes prepared her for that. So she now has that experience. So I know lots of students are like, oh, I didn't like the online. I don't want to do it again. I need that face-to-face instruction. But as you go through college, and especially grad school, the class you need to complete your major might only be offered online, or there might be a global pandemic and you might only get to take online classes. Right. So I really think that online prepares them. And then we have classes offered on our university campus. And I've spoken to some of those students, and they're like, I didn't use many of the resources because I was just so intimidated. Because I was like, did you go to any computer labs, or did you use the libraries? They were like, I was really intimidated. So I was like, well, no one knew you were not a university student. We didn't make you wear like a scarlet letter or anything that said high school on their shirts. But they, of the 3 students I talked to, it was really interesting. They liked that they got to talk to other university students, and they were like, we're all struggling in this together. Me as a high school student, them as a full-on university student, we're all facing the same issues. And so that's one student said that really bolstered my confidence in not only taking this dual credit class, but going on to be on a university campus next year. And then high school classes, they are great. We really truly appreciate every single one of our high school teachers who teach a dual credit class. We know they're doing extra work, and some of them have gone back to get their 18 hours so that they can teach dual credit. And those rock stars, we really appreciate them. We wish that there could be more funding so that more teachers who want to do that can do that. And those classes are great because it gets the students an opportunity to take a university level class, but also gives them the confidence because it's in their high school, it's during their high school day, and they have someone, either a friend next to them that they feel confident to turn to and ask for help, or that teacher, they feel confident to approach them. So I definitely think that they all 3 have amazing benefits, but I feel like online, that's if you really want to kind of prepare a student for what university will be like, I think an online class kind of is like a cold bucket of water. Wakes me up.
Well said, Brittany. Thank you for sharing those stories. Dr. Thompson, would you like to weigh in?
No, I'm just listening. It sounds good.
Yeah, great. Well, we're going to turn to our audience. Miss Carrie Hodge, who I'd also like to thank for all her efforts in coordinating this, and Wayne Fielder as well, who's the technical guy behind the scenes. Big thank you to your for your work. Do we have any questions from our audience?
We do. I am going to skip around a little bit and start with the latest question we have, because I think this one will be a good clarification point for people who aren't as familiar with dual credit. The question that was asked is, I heard Dr. Ellis say that dual credit is considered similar to other advanced opportunities like AP, etc. Are these considered to be secondary school programs?
So that's a great question. And John, if I miss anything, fill in the blanks for me. But it is post-secondary opportunities in the ability to earn college credit. So it is held obviously in the high school AP programs, IB International Baccalaureate, Cambridge, all those are at the high school level with the access or the possibility of demonstrating competence based on the score that you receive at the end of the course that could earn college credit and its equivalent, which we have at CPE Online, the college equivalent course, if they receive, for example, an AP, that seems to be the most popular in our state, is a 3, 4, or 5. So it is a secondary program with the opportunity to earn post-secondary credit. John, is there anything else you would add to that?
The only thing I would add is with AP and IB and in Cambridge, usually there's a performance task that has to be completed. With AP, it's an assessment. And so even though you pay the money for AP, you might not earn any credit at the end of the day if you don't get that qualifying score. So with dual credit, the benefit is whatever score the student gets, whatever grade they get, at that point, it's finished. So, you know, our students, and that's the reason why at Bellevue we chose to just go dual credit without following AP, is we don't want our kids to be subject to an assessment that shows whether or not they can or can't. If they did the body of work through the year, we want to make sure that they get that credit, even though it's more expensive.
Thank you. We actually have a question for Lexi. Do you agree with Ms. Scholler's assessment of online classes?
Miss Scholler, I'm pretty sure you said that online classes were kind of like a cold bucket of water being poured on you. And although I agree, I also don't at the same time. Online classes definitely are hard. They're different than traditional, but everybody has different learning styles. I myself, I like learning online. I like having everything presented right in front of me. So for some people, it may be like a cold bucket of water. It may be hard to get used to at first, but there are other students like myself who like the online format that can just have everything right in front of them. So I'm kind of partial. I agree, but I don't at the same time.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot. And then we have another follow-up question that Principal Darnell made a good point earlier. And so what does about GPA and assessment tests? What do the rest of the panelists think about using GPA rather than a test score for post-secondary placement?
I'd like to take that one if I can.
Of course.
Some of you may know that Kentucky, and I'm proud to say we were the first state that went to test optional in our minimum admission criteria, as some of you know. But two other points I want to make on this. You know, dual credit is a post-secondary class. It is a college class. There's no difference in that college class than it is a freshman sitting in that room. And this is not a high school level class. It is a college class, but it is performed if high school students can do that class, that high school students should have the opportunity to do that class. So it's less about admission criteria to me than it is about the support system that's there to help that student be successful in that class. The more we move toward looking at success as the outcome and less admission, then we've got a greater chance of having equity in our system. So my argument is that many of us policymakers and many of us folk with boots on the ground need to be thinking about certain things. If a principal like Principal Darnell decides he wants to do a lot of dual credit, then I think it should be people like me in post-secondary saying, do you have the social, academic, and student support system set up to help these students actually achieve? Do you have a pipeline process that allows more people of color to be in this pipeline in a very proactive weed in sort of way versus a weed out system. So I think all these questions are important for us to look at. And in our next edition, Dr. Ellis, of our P20 dual credit work group, we're going to be thinking about those items. So I would like for us to move away purely from the way we're thinking about, weeding people out to how we weed people in towards success. With the idea it is a college class. We're not quote unquote dumbing down the class. Which I've heard over and over again. People want, dual credit instead of AP because it's easier. That should never be a statement I would not cringe to. The AP, the dual credit are all, even though they're teaching AP and they have to get credit later on, and they're teaching a dual credit and getting credit then if they're successful, we still should be having this conversation around rigor, expectations, but also input, what's needed to help these students succeed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson.
I'd also like to just add something, sorry. So at Western, we don't require an ACT score to participate in the dual credit program. We do have courses that require that for a prerequisite, but to participate overall, we do not. We do have the 2.5 high school GPA requirement. And then some of our high schools have set up their own GPA requirements for students to participate and to receive dual credit. I don't consider that weeding out. 3.0 is what I've seen a lot, especially if a student wants to take an online class and receive high school credit, they have to have a 3.0 at some of our high schools. In that defense of that is that these guidance counselors and principals, their main goal is to protect the high school student and to make sure they succeed. And so they want to make sure that they're not only passing high school and being successful in high school, because these classes will go on their high school transcript, but also on their university transcript. So I see the benefits of why they do require a GPA. I hope that it's not weeding out students. I hope it's not intimidating students that are kind of on the fence with dual credit, but I do understand where they come from when they set up these guidelines for who they allow to take classes for dual credit.
I want to be clear though, don't get me wrong, I'm okay to use GPA. I think that's okay. We use GPA now as our primary criteria to weed people into college because we found that high school GPA and the courses they take have a much higher correlation to their success in college. My argument is we need to come up with a way of looking at that for these courses. The other point though we found to be more powerful is the way that we give students support once they get these classes. Mm-hmm. So it shouldn't be just about getting them in and throwing them to the wolves. It may mean that high school students need more support to be successful in those classes. So it is, to me, a way we have to start looking at whether or not they're getting that support in high school or they're getting it in college. As you well know, what we've done with our co-requisite model and developmental education, you have to offer those student supports for them to get that credit for that class. So we know that students can perform. It's our job to give them the kind of assistance it takes to make that performance excellent. So we just can't expect them, just because it's a college course, that they're now on their own, whether they're taking it in high school or college. So that's my argument.
Thank you so much. David, I believe we don't have time for another question. I'm sorry to everyone that we did not get to all of your questions.
David, we will follow up. Yes, we will follow up with the recording and also read through your questions and either verbally or in a written format, get back to you. Carrie, if you could put up the last slide for us. I need to take some time and thank our research staff. This project has been really a major endeavor, and I think we've been super successful with it. And again, this is just the first of 3 parts. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Dr. G. Dye. Her nickname is Grace. Please, Grace, say hello to the audience.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. So I want to introduce her because we are going to do another webinar for our research constituents and have Dr. Dye walk us through the details of the findings and the approaches, the statistical approaches that she used. This has been her baby for over a year now. She started as an intern with us and now is a senior associate at the council. I'd also like to thank Travis Muncie, who is our leader and director of our data analytics team. He not only has extracted the data and analyzes it, but he also does visualization. And so if you go to our data center, you'll see an interactive report on dual credit, and you can isolate the county of origin, which college or university is providing the dual credit, the attempted hours, the attempted credit hours, the earned credit hours, and other student characteristics. So it's super powerful, and I'd like to just plug that and see if you can give us feedback on that tool that accompanies this research. And then finally, Miss Melissa Young, who has been with the council for over 15 years. She is a true policy analyst, and she works her magic in graphic design and writing and produced the final white paper. So big thanks to her. And a thank you to the audience. We will certainly be in touch with our future research, and please stay in touch with us.